My name is Sapna Goyal and my channel is Sapna Goyal 1985. Through this video, we are going to study Class 8th History Chapter 12 of NCERT book, that is India After Independence. What a day that was when India became independent, that is on 15th of August 1947. Newly independent country faced a lot of challenges. One such challenge was providing homes and jobs to refugees. 80 lakh people shifted from Pakistan to India and they all had to be provided with home, food, shelter, etc. And this was a mammoth task before the Indian government. The next challenge was that of princely states. They had to be integrated into the Indian Union. At the time of independence, there were about 500 princely states in India. Each was ruled by either a Maharaja or a Nawab, and they had to be persuaded or requested to join into the Indian Union because our leaders wanted to have one government for entire India. Next challenge was to ensure unity in diversity. India had people belonging to different castes, religions, languages, food, etc. So all of them had to be made to live together in one country. There were many other challenges like there was lack of urbanization, most of people were living in villages, there was lack of technological advancement, there was huge amount of poverty, unemployment, people were not having jobs, basic amenities of life were lacking, there was lack of agricultural and industrial growth, a new constitution had to be framed, India had to frame its foreign policy, so there were a lot of challenges, which included about 300 people sat together to frame the Indian Constitution. It took them approximately a little less than 3 years and the Constitution was adopted or enacted on 26th of November 1949 and it came into force on 26th January 1950. Do you know, friends? Indian Constitution is unique for many reasons. So here are the features of Indian Constitution. Firstly, with the adoption of the Constitution, we gave to all our citizens universal adult franchise. That means all those who were 21 years old or above got the right to vote. Currently, that age is 18. Do you know, at the time of independence of many countries, they gave voting rights to only men or the men who had property or the men who paid taxes. Women got the voting rights much later. But in India, we provided voting rights to both men and women at the same time. Secondly, we provided equality to all citizens. That means we all got right to equality, whether you are poor or rich, Hindu or Muslim or Sikh or Christian, we all were treated as equal. Next was the abolition of untouchability. It was decided to abolish this practice of untouchability. Then it was also decided that certain percentage of seats will be reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the legislatures as well as in government jobs. A very important agenda before our constitution makers was to decide who will have more powers, central government or state government, who will make the laws and policies on various matters, central or state government. So they decided to divide the powers in 3 lists. Constitutions, that is union list, state list and concurrent list. On whatever matter the decision has to be taken by the central government, that subject is mentioned in the union list. For example, if it is about the defense of the country, only central government will make laws and policies. So that defense is a subject in the union list. Foreign affairs, banking, communications, currency, etc. All such subjects are mentioned in the union list. The issues or the subjects which are important to a state, they are mentioned in the state list. So only a state government can make laws and policies or take any decisions on the subjects mentioned in the state list. For example, police, agriculture, commerce, irrigation, library, museums, gambling, etc. Mentioned in the concurrent list. These are those subjects that are important to both central and state government. So both central and state government can make laws on it. But in case of any dispute, the final decision will rest with the central government. So such issues are marriage, trade unions, education, forest, adoption, succession, etc. There is one more list called residuary list. This list has subjects which are not part of any of the three lists. So any other subject which comes up after the constitution was framed, those subjects lie within the residuary list. So the central government only has the right to make any laws or decisions on the subjects mentioned in this list. One such subject is information technology. What is the national language of India? Well, our constitution makers did not give the status of national language to any one language. Rather, they decided to have 22 languages which will be recognized as scheduled languages in the Indian constitution. Here is the list of those 22 languages. But why did this happen? At the time our constitution was being framed, many of the constitution makers were of the view that Hindi should become the national language of India, but the non-Hindi speaking members were totally against it. One such member, T.T. Krishnamachari, conveyed a warning on behalf of people of South that if Hindi is imposed on them, then they are going to separate India. So, finally, a compromise was worked out and it was decided that we are going to have Hindi and English as the official languages of India. That means the official work of the central government will be done in Hindi and English. But the states will have their own official languages too. For example, if it is West Bengal, then in West Bengal the official work can be done in Hindi, English as well as Bengali. So, finally, we have 22 scheduled languages which includes Hindi, and we have two official languages also, that is Hindi and English. Next topic is regarding formation of states. Back in 1920s, Indian National Congress promised the people of India that after independence they will get states on the basis of their language. But the massive partition of the country along the communal lines changed the mindset of nationalist leaders. Both the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Deputy Prime Minister Vallabhbhai Patel went completely against the creation of linguistic states. They wanted to prevent further division of the country and they thought that again a division can lead to partition. But this disappointed the Indian people. They got really very angry. A person named Potti Sriramalu went on a hunger fast because he was demanding a separate state named Andhra for the Telugu speakers. And this led to a lot of hartals and bunds at many places. Finally, he kept on fasting and he died on 15th of December 1952, and it further led to widespread protests. As a result, government agreed. This led to formation of a new state of Andhra Pradesh on 1st of October 1953. The Reorganization Commission was set up and it submitted its report in 1956. So in 1956, States Reorganization Act came into effect. As per this act, the district and provincial boundaries had to be redrawn for providing provinces of Assam, Bengali, Oriya, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada and Telugu speakers. Later on in 1960, Bombay was divided into separate states for Marathi and Gujarati speakers. Later on in 1966, Punjab was also divided into Punjab and Haryana. Later, some states were divided not on the basis of language but on the basis of their culture. For example, Nagaland, Jharkhand and Uttarakhand. Apart from framing the constitution, the Indian government also had to lift India and Indians out of poverty and build a strong nation. So, in 1950, the government decided to set up a planning commission. The work of this commission will be to design suitable policies for economic development. The current Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has dissolved Planning Commission and replaced it with Niti Aayog. So, one thing that the Planning Commission decided in 1950 was that India is going to be a mixed economy. Now, what is that? There are three types of economies, that is capitalist economy, socialist economy and mixed economy. In a capitalist economy, most of the resources are owned by the private sector. That means the industries, schools, colleges, hospitals, etc. would be controlled by private sector. In a socialist economy, resources are controlled and managed by the government mostly. In a mixed economy, both private sector and government plays an important and complementary role. They both control the resources. So it was decided that India will be a mixed economy. Indian government also decided to have 5-year plans. That means every government will make its own 5-year plan in which they will decide where will they invest the money in the coming 5 years, where will the money come from, which sector will be given most importance. So the first 5-year plan was from 1951 to 1956. This plan focused more on primary sector. The second 5-year plan was from 1956 to 61, and this plan focused on rapid industrialization and building of dams. The current 5-year plan is 13th plan, and it is from 2017 to 1922. It focuses on defense. But you know, children, second 5-year plan was criticized on many grounds. Firstly, it had put less emphasis on agriculture and it even neglected primary education. Then, since this plan focused more on industrialization, it did not take into account the environmental impact of economic policies, because whenever industries come up, they lead to a lot of pollution. Okay, students, so let's discuss India's foreign policy. Do you know in 1945, Second World War got over and United Nations was formed. This was also the time when Cold War was going on between USA and USSR. USA and USSR emerged as superpowers after the Second World War. And Cold War does not mean there was a war going on between them, but it meant that there was a lot of political tension going on between these two countries and their allies, which could lead to war at any point of time. And somewhere down the line, there was a pressure on all the countries of the world to either join USA or USSR. So in 1953, a phrase was first used by Krishna Menon at United Nations, and that phrase was non-aligned. By using this phrase, he wanted to emphasize that countries should refrain from joining any of the two superpowers. So finally, in 1956, non-aligned movement was founded in Yugoslavia, and this declaration was signed by India, Yugoslavia and Egypt. So non-aligned movement is a group of those states who are not formally aligned with any of the major power blocs. Means if a country does not support USA and USSR, so it can join non-aligned movement. So India's Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, he advocated NAM, and as India's foreign policy goes, India declined to be part of military alliances led by USA and Soviet Unions openly, and India also promoted international peace and security, and it was decided that India will focus on peace and development in the neighborhood as well. Discuss how well has the country done since independence. Untouchability is still practiced in many parts of India despite the fact that it has been abolished. Many of the areas in India still do not have access to water, temples, parks, etc. The gap between rich and poor has been growing day by day. There are some people who are eating in expensive restaurants and some who do not have 2 meals a day. And there is a huge amount of population that is living below poverty line and they are forced to live in slums or in remote villages. But nevertheless, India is a growing economy and we have achieved a lot since independence. Thank you so much. Please do not forget to like and subscribe.